Welcome everyone to our week 4 in Cosmos Academy journey for foundations in web development. I remain your instructor, Emrai Pius, and today we're going to talk about JavaScript. We're going to get the basis of what JavaScript is all about. So in the course of this module 4, Introduction to JavaScript, our learning objectives is to one, understand the basics of JavaScript syntax and data types. We also will learn how to write simple scripts to manipulate the content of a web page and use events. We will learn how to use events and functions to add interactivity. So with this in mind, let us dive right into our main course of the day. So first we want to ask ourselves, what is JavaScript? We must have heard of JavaScript several places and different places, and we might have even seen what JavaScript is used for. So by way of definition, the JavaScript is a versatile and essential programming language for web development. Get this part, versatile. It's versatile because you can use it for virtually many things, not just web development, not just front end or browser interactiveness. You can use it for to communicate with the server, so you can communicate with it with the browser in the front end, communicate with the server in the back end, and you can also use it for other other functionalities outside web development. Can use it for robotics, can use it for gaming, can use it for Web3, and it's cut across many tech niches. So that's why you see the word versatile. And it is a computer language, it's a programming language. Unlike HTML and CSS that we've played with for the past 2 weeks, JavaScript is those other two I mentioned, they are called markup languages. And sometimes when some persons when they start learning the HTML and CSS, oh, they call themselves they are learning programming language, they are developers and all that. So there was this joke they make jest of some of them that do that. There was a place I did my internship and they were like, you think you're a web developer? No, you are not using a computer language. You are still just using HTML and CSS. But that will stop from this week because I'll introduce you to a computer language so that you can officially call yourself a computer programmer, a web developer. So JavaScript, like I said earlier, is a versatile and essential programming language for web development. It plays a pivotal role in enhancing the functionality and interactivity of websites, web pages. So now, for our focus will be more on the interactiveness of our web page. So that's what we want to see how to use JavaScript for. Then also we explore the primary, like I said earlier, we're going to talk about the basic. We're going to focus on the basic usage of JavaScript in our foundation class. So yeah, we are going to explore the primary role of JavaScript in web development and provide a simple example to illustrate the capabilities of JavaScript. So with that being said, we'll ask ourselves now, where and how does it run in our web browser, or how does it run, or where does it run JavaScript itself? So majorly JavaScript works in our browsers, which is our Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Brave, whatever browser we are using. JavaScript usually runs there, works there. It works in our web browser for testing code, just to, okay, let's see how far we've gone, to test if something is working. Also, JavaScript is an interpreted language, meaning that it's executed directly by the browser without the need for compilation. This is one importance of JavaScript over other computer languages, and that's why you see that they use it mainly. They use it very much in web development. Even if you are using in advanced level, we'll talk about using PHP, Laravel. That's some programs of tools called frameworks. Like let's say there's one for Laravel that helps to use those JavaScript interactiveness. It's being built. So whatever you are doing, in as much as you are trying to connect with the web browser, and you are trying to do some kind of interactiveness outside CSS and HTML, you have to use JavaScript. So that's why it's important. It's like it's not. It's just it's an interpreted language. Unlike other ones that has to do with compilation, you have to compile and press and convert to what the system and the browser can understand. Also, it's often used within HTML documents in to manipulate the document object model, the DOM, which represents the structure of the web page. We are going to talk about that in this class. Then JavaScript can be run asynchronously, allowing it to interact with servers and database without blocking the user's interaction. So this was what I said earlier on. You can also use it for interacting with the servers and database. So it's an added advantage of you learning JavaScript. So without blocking interactions. So I with time in intermediate to advanced course, you know more about this. Then it needs to be linked to HTML file to work. So like I explained in why we're talking about CSS, when we talk about how the browser reads your HTML page, like I said, it reads your page from the top of the page, from your doc type HTML down to the closing tag of HTML. So when you want to add any file or anything you want to put on your browser, or you want to bring your browser to display, you have to link it to your HTML file. So with your script, your JavaScript, if you want to use JavaScript in your code, you have to link it to your file. Most times you do that with tag. You see where we talk about tags, how tags are important. So you have to add that script tag so that the system is going to understand that you're talking about tags. You're talking about JavaScript. So one thing we need to know when we talk about JavaScript is variables. Variables. There's no way we'll talk about even code in general without talking about variables. So an advantage now when we are doing this JavaScript basics, it's still same with other computer language. All computer languages has the word variable is the same. It does the same thing. The only difference is syntax. How it is being done in JavaScript is different from how it is being done in, let's say, PHP. It's just like local language. When you say come in English, it's the same thing as bien in Spanish. It's the same thing as why in Yoruba. So it's just the same. It's just, but it means the same thing rather. What is difference is the spelling and the pronunciation, which is in programming language is syntax. So it's another advantage learning the basics of JavaScript on programming language in general. So variables are like containers that hold data. They allow you to store and manipulate values in your programs. We'll take the first one. They are like containers. It's just like uh, let's use a family as an example. So in your family, you have different names. Everybody has a name. In the like I call my name is Pius, and if you want to call any of you can't just say you can't just call my son name Imuraye and you expect everybody to not know that. Everybody will have to turn that you are calling them because that is our family name. But if you want to get a particular person, say, oh, Pius, I'll be the one to turn because they've tagged me with that name. Just like our phone contact, if you want to call somebody, you save that person's name. Save the person's name with bios, and when you go to your contact, you click on bios, and automatically it calls the number attached to it. That is what variable is. You have a particular container that holds a particular data, and that data you use it to manipulate what you want to do. It's just stored data and you use it when you want to use it. So that is what variables are. So this data, we'll talk about what they are, because this data can come in different forms. So after we talk about variables, just put that in mind. We'll talk about the different kind of data that variables can actually work with. So in this particular screenshot, you have variable name, which is number, and the variable value is 10. So in a variable, you have the name, which is the name of the variable, and the value. So also, we can say variables give names to data, making it easier to refer to and use different values throughout your code. So instead of you, every time you want to, let's say, call my name, let's put it like that, instead of you to call that tall guy with flat hair, this with those long description, you just call my name and it will just bring out all the features about me and you see it. So that's what variable does. Instead of you having to call a particular element every time from the scratch, let's use that word, you just save it to one place, and once you call it, you are going to access everything about that element. So you can see an example now. In JavaScript, like I said, it's all about syntax. In JavaScript, when we talk about when we talk about variable, how you declare a variable, you use the word declare a variable. You either use cost, let, or var. So in this particular picture here, this example we are seeing on the screen, you see something like cost num, which is like number, is equals to 10. So that cost, you can also say let num equals to 10. You can say var num equals to 10. They all mean the same thing. They are all containers. They are all variable ways of declaring a variable, such that anytime you want to call this number 10 again, instead of to be calling number 10 every time, you could just say cost number, and cost number automatically becomes 10 anytime you use it on your code. So the next basic intro to JavaScript I want to get us to know is about data types. In our previous screen, I talked about the variables being a container that stores data. So now the next question is, what kinds of data? So there are different data, which is now what we come to data types. Basically, they are grouped into two, primitive and non-primitive. But for starters, I'm going to brush through the different data types. I'm not going to dwell on them because I just want to introduce you to it. So while we practice, if there is need for one or two, we'll use them. But just for a rundown, a general overview, we have two basic types of data, which is primitive and non-primitive. And primitive is subdivided into like 5 or 6 of them. Then non-primitive, you also have um, sub data types for non-primitive. So let's work with the primitive. So first of all, a data type is a classification of data which tells the compiler or interpreter how the programmer intends to use the data. So like I said, the type of data in that container varies. So now I can choose to, in our previous example, you see that I have cost num equal to 10. So now I'm actually telling the system to treat that name cost num as 10. So now in this particular case, I'm telling it to treat it as a number, as an integer. So that is what data types does. It classifies, it is a classification of data which tells the compiler, which is the browser, the machine, the computer, how to interpret or how the programmer intends to use that particular data. So in the past example, I tend to use that data as a number, which is 10. Also, data types define the kind of values that can be stored in the variables. Then they determine how the variables are treated, what operations can be performed on them, and how they are stored in memory. So these are just various, will I say, definitions of data types. So by way of a pictorial representation, like I explained, we have in JavaScript we have this major data type, which is subdivided into two: primitive type and non-primitive type, which is reference. Non-primitive type and primitive type. So for primitive type, we have number, you have string, you have boolean, we have null, we have undefined. For non-primitive, we have object and array, and functions also. We also have functions for that data type. So by simple way of a basic way of definition, let's just go through the primitive types. So primitive data types are also known as inbuilt data types. You know why I call it inbuilt very soon, because just let me just say that, like for the non-primitive data types, they are the combination of one or two of the primitive data types. For primitive data types, like they are inbuilt data types, they like stand on their own. Yeah, they are on their own, unlike the non-primitive that depends on the primitive data types. So let's start with a string. So a string represents a sequence of characters enclosed in single or double quotes. So when you see something like this, it's like this example: cause name is equal to John. This is a string. This particular element, you are storing this variable as a string. The system will read this as a text-like value. It's usually, strings are usually like textual value. So it's usually presented with a quote. You can see there's a quote here. You have you have for number, you have number represents both integer and floating point numbers, so decimal numbers and all that. So you can also, like with the example we have earlier on, as num for numbers. Then we have boolean. We have so boolean simply represents a true or false value. We have we have undefined. Undefined represents a variable that has been declared but hasn't been assigned to a value. We'll come to that. Just know that there's something called undefined. When you define it, just like we have cost number, but we didn't actually define a value. We just declare the variable. We declare the name Pius, but we've not say, okay, this guy should be Pius. We just declare the name Pius. So that is what undefined is. Same with null. Null now you can say null is different from undefined. Undefined is you just declare the name Pius. You didn't attribute it to anything. But in null, it represents the intentional absence of any value or object reference. So I can decide to say Pius. Nobody has Pius. So now I'm deliberately saying that I declared the name Pius, hey, equals Pius, but I did not attach a value. So I deliberately put the word null. So for now, there's no value. So if you look at the examples at the side, you see for number, you have cost age 25, cost price 9.599. Then for boolean, you just have true or false. So you see a student is student true, is student false. So we'll see where we can use these values. You see the one for all defined, let's address. We've not assigned a value to the address. But for null, we are deliberately saying that this thing should be nothing. Then let's go to non-primitive data types. So non-primitive data type, we have objects. So object represents a collection of key value pairs. Objects can contain various data types and functions, making them highly versatile. So, like I said earlier on, the non-primitive data types are kind of a combination of one or two primitive data types. So, like this example at this top part, you see a person, name Alice, last name Smith, age 30, is student, meaning is he a student, is a boolean. So now this is a string, this is a string, this is an integer, then you have a boolean. Then inside this object, you have another object again. So you can see that it's a combination of various primitive data types printing as one. Then another one is array. So a data structure, array is a data structure that allows you to store multiple values in a single variable. Store multiple values in a single variable. So now, instead of, you can see the example here now. I can say, okay, all the months of the year should be called month. So anytime I call Vermont, it means that I'm trying to refer to all these things. So I can access any of these by just calling month. So come to that, we'll see how we use that. Then the data types are derived from non-primitive data types. I just explained that they are derived from non-primitive data types, and they are known as non-primitive. Sorry, data types derived from primitive data types of the JavaScript language and as known as non-primitive data types. It's also known as derived data types or reference data types. So having talked about data type, let's talk about operators. So the next question you ask yourself is, what's an operator in JavaScript? So an operator in JavaScript is simply, they are simply special symbols or keywords that are used to perform operations on variables and values in JavaScript. So when we talk of operators, you see them as special symbols and keywords. We'll see examples of it. So just take note that operators in JavaScript, they are special symbols and keywords. So these operations can range from simple arithmetic calculations to complex logical equations. Yeah, we must have done one of these in our secondary schools when we talk about truth and false statement. You see logical and, logical or, and things like that. So those are operators we use in JavaScript. Those are operators in computer programming in general. So operators are fundamental part of JavaScript and computer programming in general, and are used extensively in writing code. So you use them in any computer language, you use them, you use these operators. So there are basically four major groupings of operators. So we have the assignment operator. This is used to assign value. Just like the example we have, let's cause Rukewe. I mean, sorry, cause name is equals to. So that equal sign is an assignment sign. It doesn't mean that cause name is equal to, like in mathematics, that is the same. No, you're assigning this value, which is bios, the name, to course name, so that anytime you refer to name in your work, you are going to get you are going to get the term bios instead of the name. Like yeah, instead of the name. I'll give you an example of that. Let's, once we are done with this, I'll give you a simple example to explain that. Then we have arithmetic operator. So for the arithmetic operator, it calculates values. So you can see it's our basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. There are many of them. That's why you see me put like etc. etc. So we have the comparison operator. Comparison, as the word connotes, compares value. Is this equal to this? So now in programming language, when you talk about equal to this is what you're referring to. Is this equal to this? This is what this thing means. Double equal sign. Triple equal sign is checking for both the data type and the value. Don't worry, we'll come to that. But just know that there's what they call two equal to that just check. Is 5 equals to 5? Okay. But when you put 3, you're checking if 5 is equal, 5 as a string is equal to 5 as an integer or 5 as something else. So it checks for both the value and the data type, unlike the first two equal to that just checks for the value. Then you have a basic greater than and less than sign. Then you have logical operators for logical and. This is and the or. Then this is for not, negative connotation. We are familiar with this and or in secondary schools, yeah. So but these are boolean values. They simply talk about boolean values. So